Hello, this is Dr. Martin. I'm traveling on today to Fort Smith, Arkansas. Today I'm at the National Cemetery in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It's about 104 degrees today and the sun is as bright as it can be. But I'm honored to be here in this sacred place. You know, men and women, brave men and women who fought for our country, some who even gave their lives for our freedom, are buried in this city of the dead. It's a special place. Not far away is the old historic fort. Maybe you didn't know this, but back in the day, Fort Smith, Arkansas was the last bastion of civilization before you entered into the wilderness. Well, really before you entered into Indian territory, which is kind of like no man's land. So they had a fort established here on the Arkansas River, and it was a beautiful place, no doubt, but it was a rough place. There was some rough and tumble cowboys that lived here. It was a tough time. Well, you can go through the old fort, and you can see the jail where they kept some of the really bad hombres. And I'm telling you, some of the people in that jail, they were some pitiful to look at. Well, you can also visit the courtroom where Isaac Parker sat as a judge. Judge Parker is called the hanging judge, and there's a real reason for that. In 24 years, he sent 87 men to these gallows. Now, he said, men, I don't want to hang you, but it's the law. It might have been the law, but it didn't feel any better for those guys that were invited to Judge Parker's necktie parties. Well, I came here, especially to this cemetery and to this courthouse, so I could talk to you about judgment. Did you know there's lots of judgments in the Scriptures? But I want to talk to you about two judgments specifically. One of them is the great white throne judgment. In Revelation 20, it says that every man is going to be brought up out of the grave to stand before God, and the books are going to be open, and the book of life is going to be open. And whosoever's name is not found in the book of life will be cast forever into the lake of fire. But you know, the good news is nobody has to spend eternity in the lake of fire. Nobody has to spend eternity in hell. Jesus Christ, God's Son, died on the cross to save you from your sins. So you don't have to go to hell. Let me tell you about the second judgment. The second judgment takes place for those people who are in heaven. It's the judgment seat of Christ, and it is a judgment for Christians. The Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 10 that every believer will stand before Jesus Christ and give account of their life for everything they did, whether it was good or bad. Now I'm telling you, when you stand before Jesus, it won't matter how big a house you had. It won't matter how much money you made. It won't matter whether or not your kids had a good education or threw a great pass at the football game. None of that stuff is going to be important. Your bank account, your good looks, nothing matters. The old motto says, only one life will soon be passed, and only what's done for Christ will last. Nothing is more true. Only what you do for Jesus Christ will count on Judgment Day. Everything else will pass away like wood and hay and stubble. It'll burn up in the judgment. You're going to stand before Christ. Did you know that He said you would even be judged for every idle word that came out of your mouth? I'll tell you, that's a pretty frightening thought. If I'd been alive 150 years ago and I broke the law, I wouldn't want to go to Judge Isaac Parker's courtroom, I'll tell you. He might have invited me to one of his neck-stretching parties. I wouldn't want to be there. But I'm going to be at a place more solemn than that. I'm going to stand before the holy God of heaven and give account of my life. If I'm an unbeliever, I'm going to stand at the great white throne judgment where I'll be lost forever. If I'm a believer, I'm going to be at the judgment seat of Christ where I'll give account of my works. Either way, I want to be ready. The old song says, are you ready for the judgment day? That's my message for you today. Are you ready for the judgment day? Now I'm traveling on.